after they are acknowledged by the board chair. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes to make his or her remarks. Speakers will address all comments to the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. The board may not take action on an item presented during the public comment period unless the item is already on the agenda for action. When appropriate, the board may refer inquiries and items brought up during the public comment period to the county administrator for follow-up. And as a reminder, if you're here for public comment, we ask that you step up to the podium so that everyone can hear you. And with that, is there any public comment? Any public comment? No public comment? We'll close the meeting with public comment. We have no correspondence. Commissioners, you want to pull anything from the consent agenda for more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda as printed.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is number 10, adopt resolution authorizing execution of amendment number 1 to MnDOT contract number 1053976 and authorize the chair and administrator to execute the agreement, page 44 of the board packet.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This is an agreement to conduct the archaeology and historical investigations into the east side corridor before we do the construction here. We had established a contract here with a three-party contract between MnDOT, the county, and then the consultant, Westward Professional Services. By using this MnDOT contract, we've been able to secure 80% of those costs that are paid for by the federal highway. With the extended timeline to complete our environmental studies here, the time in the original contract is needed to be extended. So basically we're just approving that extension of the contract timeline.
Mr. Chair, I'll offer the resolution to approve the amendment number 1 contract.
The resolution's been offered by Commissioner Glenn. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
That's second by Commissioner Krieger. Any discussion, comments? Just want to note that there's no change to the scope of the budget, so there's no additional cost to this. It's just along with additional. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is number 11, accept Steele County parking lot reconstruction contract.
Mr. Chair and the city, discussion and voting on this matter.
Jake and Candy.
Right, as discussed in work session, we received bids on August 20th for the parking lot reconstruction project for the admin and the courthouse project. We did it in 4 different lump sums, one bituminous for each site and one for concrete each site. As far as the bituminous, courthouse price was $218,504.15. Admin was $523,407.53. And then for the concrete, the courthouse low bid was $345,815, and for the admin it was $974,500. We did do the cost analysis on the life expectancy, which included maintenance costs on each. The admin parking lot, the 20-year lifespan that we looked at, the concrete total cost would be $1,009,500. The bituminous would cost us $1,024,407.53. And that is assuming a 3% increase annually. For the courthouse, the concrete life projected cost is $361,015 for the concrete. The bituminous would be $414,604.15. Again, with the concrete, you're probably gonna need an additional 10 to 15 years after those, or 10 to 20 years after those initial 20 years. So with that, we would like to recommend approval of got too many sheets of paper here. We'd like to recommend to approve the facilities and fleet director to accept the low bid alternate number 2 from JJD Companies LLC in the amount of $1,320,315 and to execute the contract for Steele County parking lot reconstruction project.
Mr. Chair, I had a question I forgot to ask before. Are they going to redo the curbs too, or the curbs will stay the same?
Yep, all that will, where there's bad curves, they'll redo them.
Only where it's bad.
Yep. And then there's actually quite a bit, kind of at the entries, because ADA specs were different, 26 years ago than they are today. So there's actually quite a bit up by the building that needs to be redone to get the required slopes.
I know the courthouse, we have the keys back.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's always interesting in these analysis. They're anticipating a mill and overlay in 16 years. And the parking lot that's out here has been there for, what did we determine? 28 years with no mill and overlay.
Should have had one a few years ago.
It needed some work. It's long overdue, there's no doubt. It's just, they kind of make these analysis work the way they want them to work. I don't disagree. I believe that concrete's probably the way to go for the taxpayer. We have the money in the road and bridge. We've saved money. We planned for this, so it does make sense. But just wanted to point out, I think that's a little aggressive on the mill and overlay, but everybody uses a different useful life table, so.
And they're taking off from the life expectancy of, so many different projects. That's just kind of an average of the
Exactly,
industry
yeah.
standards.
Yeah, they have to throw a number in there. There's no doubt.
We got lucky here, but that doesn't necessarily look good.
All right, so any more questions for Jake or Candy? We did discuss this in the work session. The funds are there again in the road and bridge to pay for it. And it's not going to deplete the road and bridge fund to the point where we can't continue to maintain our roads and bridges. Still do the work that we're responsible for, so.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the facilities and fleet director to accept the low bid from JJD Companies for $1,320,315 to execute the contract for the Steele County parking lot reconstructions. And I would just add that I think our road and bridge has been a good steward of our funds, and we've got the money now, and this is something else that in the future we don't throw out on tax levy for the taxpayers to have to burden later on by doing it for the long term now.
Yes, I'll second that. And I agree with that. The concrete lasts about twice as long as asphalt, not to mention you add for the inflation. And I know we talked about this earlier, for those of you that weren't here. But concrete lasts far better than asphalt.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Krieger, a second by Commissioner Neely. Is there any discussion?
I think it might save us some liability in the future too.
Or any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and let the record reflect that Commissioner Brady abstained.
Thanks for
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
Yes, thank you.
Next up is approve the transition of senior services to public health and CCV services to mid-career. It's page 49 of your board packet. Any more discussion or anyone to elaborate on that?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to approve the transitioning between public health and mid-career on seniors and other alumni.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the transition of senior services to public health and CCV services to mid-career as discussed. Any comments?
Mr. Chair, I would just note that this is on the condition that the Joint Powers Board would similarly approve the exchange.
Noted. All right, any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, next up is approve the county administrator salary range and wage progression, page 50 of your board packet. Gina, please.
Yep. So the request that I bring before you tonight is to approve the county administrator salary range at $150,000 to $190,000 per year, and afford that position the same wage progression as other non-union exempt staff. The COLA progression, or the COLA amount, is something that's brought before the board each year and is an annual decision. And step increases are based on receiving a satisfactory or better performance review. So I'm happy to elaborate if you have additional questions.
Questions from the board?
I like the way you worded it, you did a good job. It's clever.
Go ahead. I was gonna make a motion to approve the county administrator salary range and wage progression.
Motion by Commissioner Glenn, is there a second?
I will second that, and just with the comment that Gina did allow for the board to have some discretion if needed
Exactly.
at some point in time.
For those of you
We
that
can
don't,
go outside of that at board discretion.
Either way.
Either way.
we talked about this earlier, just everybody, so the ones that didn't make it, yes.
Any discussion? Rick, you want to comment? Or any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next up is county engineer salary range and wage progression. Same thing, just different position.
Yep. Same request, different salary range and different position.
I'll make a motion to accept that, with the county engineer, the wage and wage progression.
We have a motion by Commissioner Neely, is there a second?
I will second that.
Commissioner Brady seconds. Any discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
All right, next up is ACH contract proposal, page 53 of your board packet.
See you again.
So bring this in front of you, more so to give you an opportunity to ask questions, to give you a little bit of backstory on the contract adjustment. So our backstory on how this kind of came to be, ACH essentially is changing a policy that they have internally, that they were going to require RNs only, and they have to be essentially there